Was sponsored by Kite, which is a Python plugin for editors and IDEs that gives you intelligent snippets and an integrated documentation tool called Copilot that'll let you know all about specific classes and methods and more. And I'll actually be using the VS Code extension and Copilot in this tutorial. It's free, it's extremely helpful, so click on the link in the description below to find out more and download Kite. Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to build a speech assistant application with Python, and we're going to use the speech recognition library. We're going to use Google Text-to-Speech so that it can actually talk back to us, along with some other packages as well. And basically, we're going to be able to give voice commands to do certain things, like we'll be able to ask their name. I'm just going to call it Alexis. And we'll be able to ask to search something on Google, ask to find something on a map, and so on, and have it talk back to us. All right, so let's get started here. I have VS Code open, just an empty folder called Alexis Speech Assistant. And down here I have my terminal. And the first thing I'm going to do is just set up a virtual environment where usually I usually use pipenv, but it's been giving me some issues, so I'm just going to use virtual env. So if I say python 3-m venv and then create a folder, I'll call it venv as well. And you can see that that folder got created, and then in this bin folder there's an activate script, so we want to call that to activate our virtual environment. So we'll just do source, and that's going to be in venv/bin/ and then activate. Okay, so now that should be activated. So we need to select an interpreter in VS Code. So if we do Command-Shift-P and you just search for Python and select interpreter, see this right here, this venv. I'm going to choose that, and now we should be all set. And if you want to use pipenv or you don't want to use virtual environments or whatever, that's fine too. So now that we're set up, let's install a couple dependencies that we're going to need. So we're going to use pip install, and it's going to be speech recognition, all one word. And this is a library that we'll be using, and I have the documentation here. So it's a library for performing speech recognition with support for several engines and APIs. And the API we'll be using is the Google Speech Recognition API. There's some others as well, like Google Cloud Speech, Wit.ai, Microsoft Bing, Sphinx, which works offline. So there's some other ones as well, but we'll be using the Google one. Okay, and then there's a requirement or a dependency that we need called PyAudio, where you only need this if you're actually using the microphone, which we are, because you can also use audio files with this library. But since we're using the microphone, we need to pip install PyAudio. Okay, and then there's some other stuff we're going to need later on, but that's it for now. So let's just create a file. I'll call it main.py, and then we'll open up main.py. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is import the speech recognition library. So it's going to be speech_recognition, and we're going to say as SR. Okay, so whenever we use this, we can just use SR. And we want to initialize what's called a recognizer. So it's going to be SR dot and then the recognizer class. And that's basically the bread and butter of this library. That's what's responsible for actually recognizing speech. Okay, now we want to use the microphone. Like I said, you can use audio files, but we're going to use the microphone. So we're going to say with SR dot microphone, and let's say as our source. Okay, so the source is going to be our microphone. And we're going to first prompt the user. So we'll just say print, say something. And to begin with, we're just going to be our first goal is to just get what we say into the microphone and then print it in the console. And then later on, we'll implement Google Text-to-Speech so that Alexis can actually talk back to us, or whatever you want to call it. That's just what I'm calling it. Okay, so let's create a variable called audio, and we're going to set this to our recognizer object, and then there's a listen method, and we want to pass in our source, which is our microphone. Okay, and then we want to create a variable for our voice data. So whatever we say, we want to put that into a variable. And we can do that using the Google, or using any of these, but we're going to use this recognize Google. And then pass in here the audio variable. Okay, so that should capture the voice data. Now let's just print our voice data. Okay, so we'll save that. This is just asking if I want to install an auto formatter. We'll just say yes. Okay, now let's run this file, and when I run it, it's going to automatically listen, and I'll say something and it should print it. So let's run python main.py. I love programming. And there we go. So you can see that it printed down here in the console. All right, so that's kind of step one, is just to get what we're saying, to get that into this variable. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things with the kite extension that I'm using, which comes with a really cool integrated documentation program called Copilot. So if we want to look at like Recognizer, notice how when I hover over it, we get this docs. If I click on that, it'll open up Kite's Copilot, and it'll show us all the methods and stuff like that. You can see the listen method right here. Gives us all the different arguments or possible arguments, tells us what it is. It records a single phrase from a source, an audio source, and records it into audio data, into an instance, and returns it. Tells us how it's done and all that stuff. And then let's see what else here. We have the listen. Actually, we just looked at that. Microphone. So if you want to read more about this, we can hit docs. So this is a really handy extension. So it creates a new microphone instance, which represents a physical microphone on the computer, and gives you all the different members. And I just want to show you right here, the Recognize Google. If we take a look at that in Copilot, this performs speech recognition on audio data, but what I want to show you is the exceptions that can be thrown. So right here, this unknown value error exception, this is thrown if it doesn't understand what you're saying. If you just make like noises or something, that'll get thrown. So we need to handle that. And then it also will raise a request error if something's wrong, like the service isn't working. So we want to basically wrap this in a try block. All right, so right under audio, let's go ahead and open up a try block, and we'll just tab these two over, and then we want to have our exceptions. So we'll say except sr dot and then unknown value error. We actually don't need these parentheses. And then if that happens, we'll just go ahead and print out, and we'll say sorry I did not get that. Okay, and then we'll have our request error exception. So except sr dot request error. And if that happens, then let's print, and we'll just say, sorry, my speech service is down. Okay, so I'll save that, and it should do the same thing. We'll go ahead and run this again. I love coding. There we go, so it still works. Now I want to put this into a function. I don't want it to just be in the global scope here, because we're going to need to basically store it in another variable. So let's define a function called record audio. Okay, and then we just want to take all of this and put that in the function by just tabbing it over. And we're going to initialize voice data right above the try. So our voice data variable, just set it to an empty string, and then down at the bottom we're going to return it right here on the same level as the exception. So return voice data. Okay, so now we have a function, and now we'll go down here, and I'm actually going to delete this print say something because I'm going to put that down here. I don't want it in the actual function. So let's print, actually we're not going to say something, we'll say how can I help you, because basically we're going to be giving voice commands. So we'll say how can I help you, and then let's create our variable down here, voice data, and set that to record audio. And we'll go ahead and print it out here. So print voice data. I'm not going to leave this print here, but I just want to make sure that this still works. So we'll run it. What is your name? There we go. And it actually said it twice because I have the print right here. So I actually don't want to print it out. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of this print. Okay, so now we have this variable that has our voice data. So we want to basically have Alexis, or whatever you want to call it, respond. So I'm going to create a function called respond, and we're going to pass in that voice data. Okay, so we'll create that function up here. Define respond, which takes in voice data. Okay, and we'll say if, and let's do what is your name. If that is in the voice data, then for now we don't have the actual speak functionality yet, so we'll just print it out. So we'll print out my name is Alexis, or whatever. I'm surprised my ALEXA isn't going off when I say this. All right, so let's try this out. Clear this up. What is your name? And there we go. So we get my name is Alexis. Okay, cool. So let's actually have Alexis tell us the time. So up here, let's bring in, we'll say from time import ctime, and let's have another if statement here. So we'll say if what time is it is in our voice data, then let's print out ctime. Okay, so we'll try that. What time is it? Okay, so it actually prints out the date and the time. I mean, if you want to format it, you can, or if you want to change it to like what is the date, you could do that, but I think that's fine for this. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to be able to search for something. I want to say, search for whatever, dogs or whatever, search Google. So we're actually going to import up here the web browser package, which is a core package. We don't need to install it or anything. And I'm going to say right here, if search, I want to say if search in voice data. And notice I didn't put like a variable here or anything. What I want to happen is I want to say the word search, and then I want it to ask me what I want to search for, and then I'll say again, I'll say what I want to search for. So in order to do this, let's have a variable called search and set it to record audio, because we need it to know what we're saying back. Now this record audio, I'm going to pass in an optional parameter for it to actually ask a question. So we'll say, what do you want to search for? And up here in the record audio, we're going to have an optional argument of ask. We want to set that initially to false because it's optional. And we'll put this, let's put this right above audio. So right here, we'll just say if ask. Actually, we can just do if ask, and then we want to print ask. Okay, and then whatever we say back, whatever we want to search for, is going to get put into this variable. All right, so the next thing we'll do after we put that into the variable is create a URL that we want to use, which is going to be a Google search URL. So https google.com/search, and we can do $Q equals. So this is just a query that we want to search Google, and we're just going to concatenate onto that whatever that search term is. Okay, then we can use the web browser. So web browser.get and then .open, and just pass in that URL, and that should open it in the web browser. Okay, and then I just want to print out after that. We'll go ahead and print out, here is what I found for, and we'll just concatenate on the search term. Okay, so yeah, I think that should work. Let's save it. Let's try it out. So I'm going to run the program. Search dogs. And there we go. So it opens up a browser, goes to Google, goes to the query equals dogs, and shows us dogs. Okay, and I want to do a similar thing for location using Google Maps. So let's go ahead and say if, actually I'll I'll just copy this because it's pretty similar. So we'll call this find location. So if we say find location, then we'll have a variable called location. And let's change the text here to, what do I want this to say? We'll just say, what is the location? Oops. So the ask will be, what is the location? Okay, and then the URL is going to be different. So let's actually get rid of this. It's going to be google.nl/maps/ what is the URL? place / and then we'll concatenate the location, and then we have to concatenate onto that /ampersand. So we want to use ampersand AMP like that, and then semicolon. Okay, so down here, same thing. We're just going to open the URL, and then let's change this text here. We'll say, here is the location of, and then we'll concatenate onto that the location variable. All right, so let's see if this works. Find location. Boston, Massachusetts. And there we go. So it opens up Boston on a map. Cool. So I want this, I mean, right now we run it, we say one thing and it ends. I want it to basically continue on to just listen, to continuously listen. So we can do that pretty easily. We're just going to go down here and we're going to use the time package. Actually, I have to import it on its own. So import time and say time.sleep. We're going to call the sleep method, which just waits however many seconds we want. So let's say time.sleep1. And then right here, we're going to just have a while loop. We'll say while1 and just tab both of these over. And this should cause it to just kind of sit there and wait for us to talk. So let's go ahead and clear this up and let's call the file. What is your name? What time is it? Find location. Boston, Massachusetts. Okay, so that worked. Good. Now I can get out of this with Control C, but I want to be able to speak, exit, and get out of it. So let's just do if exit in voice data, then we're just going to call exit. Okay, so we'll try this again. What is your name? Exit. And there we go. So now we can exit on voice command. So now what we want to do is instead of just printing stuff out, we want it to talk back to us. So for that, we're going to use Google Text to Speech. So it's a Python library and CLI tool to interface with the Google Translate Text to Speech API. So we want to install this. And basically what it's going to do is whatever we pass in as text, which is Alexis basically, it's going to create an audio file and we can play that audio file. Now we're going to need an additional package called play sound, because if we don't use this, it's going to open up like iTunes or some kind of sound player, whatever your default sound player is, and we don't want that. We want it to just say it right away. And then play sound has a dependency called AppKit, which is actually in a package called PyObjectC or obj-c. So there's a couple things we need to install. So let's go ahead and pip install gtts. So that's the Google text to speech. And then let's do pip install play sound. And let's do pip install PyObjc. So just like that. And that has the app kit that play sound depends on. So we'll go up here, we'll just import everything we need. So let's import play sound, and we're also going to import the OS package, which is just a core Python package, because what's going to happen is, like I said, the Google Text-to-Speech will create an audio file, and unless we remove that file in our code, they're just going to keep piling up. So with the OS module or package, it has a remove method that we can remove the file with. So that's why I'm using this. And then we're also going to import random, because I want to randomly generate a file name for the audio file. And then from GTTS, we want to import GTTS like that. So Google Text-to-Speech. All right, and then we're going to have a function. Let's go right here and define a function, and we're going to call this Alexis underscore speak, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, and then the first thing we want to do here is create our text-to-speech variable. So we're going to set that to GTTS, and this has two things we want to pass in. So text, which is going to be, this has to take in an audio string, and this is going to be audio string, and then the language, so lang, is going to be English, so EN, and you can use other languages if you want. All right, and then we're going to create basically a random string using random int. So let's set this to random, and there's a method called randint, and this is going to take in, we're going to start at 1, and we want this to be really large, so let's do 10 million, so 10, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we want to create the name of the audio file that's going to be created. So that's going to actually be audio dash, and then we're just going to concatenate R, which is that random number, but we want to turn it into a string. So we'll wrap it in str. And then we just want .mp3, because it's going to be an MP3 file. Okay, so that's our audio file. Now we need to take our text-to-speech variable, and there's a method called save. So we want to save that audio file. All right, now I want to play this right away, so we're going to use play sound, which has a method called play sound. And then in here we want to pass in our audio file. Okay, and then I'm going to print what Alexis says, as well as having her say it. So let's just do print and then whatever the audio string is. Yeah, audio string. Oops, don't need that. Okay, and then the last thing we want to do is remove the file. So os.remove, and we want to remove the audio file. Okay. So we'll save this, and now basically everywhere where we've been printing, we want to now replace that with Alexis Speak. So right here, the ask, we'll replace that with Alexis Speak, and down here, these prints, say Alexis Speak, and then this one here. Okay, and let's see, and it's going to print too, since we have this here. So when she speaks, it'll also print it out in the console. And then all of these prints, I'm just going to Command D here, select all those and replace them with Alexis Speak. And then down here, this last one. Okay, so we should be all set. Let's try it out.
How can I help you?
What is your name?
My name is Alexis.
What time is it?
Saturday, December 21st, 14 hours, 37 minutes, and 21 seconds, 2019.
Okay. Search.
What do you want to search for?
Dogs.
Here is what I found for dogs.
Find location.
What is the location?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Here is the location of Boston, Massachusetts.
Cool. Psst, 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 psst.
Sorry, I did not get that.
Exit. There we go. So worked perfectly. And of course, I mean, you could add to this and do whatever you want to it. In fact, I'm going to put the GitHub repo in the link, and I'm sorry, in the description. And if you want to add on to it, make a pull request, make this, you know, more advanced or whatever, have it do some cool stuff. That's absolutely fine. I encourage it. And I encourage you to just take what you've learned in terms of speech recognition, Google text-to-speech, and build something of your own, you know. So hopefully you guys like this little tutorial, and definitely check out Kite. I mean, anything that I want to look up here, like if I want to look at web browser, I can look at the docs in Copilot and it will show me the description. It'll show me, you know, what get does, what open does, and I can search for other things as well. So definitely check out the Kite extensions. It's free. I have the link in the description, so be sure to check that out, especially, you know, obviously if you're doing Python with VS Code or Atom or a number of other text editors and IDEs. All right, so that's it, guys. I will see you in the next video.